Hello, and welcome to Talking Legal Aid, a podcast that takes you inside Tennessee's largest nonprofit law firm. I'm Dean Hinton, a licensed attorney for legal aid of Middle Tennessee and the Cumberlands. Whether you're an attorney or a person with a legal problem looking for help, we are here for you. We're in the studio today with Lucinda Smith from Bass, Berry & Sims. Lucinda, welcome to the studio. We're going to talk about volunteerism today. Attorneys volunteering to represent clients. So first of all, welcome to the studio.
Thanks, Dean. It's really great to see you again. It's been, I guess we've known each other something like 15 years, maybe more, when you started as a pro bono lawyer coming to legal clinics at Legal Aid Society.
You were the face of legal aid for me. And I still remember some of the things you told me back in the day as just a little puppy attorney.
You know, one of the best things in my practice has been being able to work with younger lawyers. I feel like I gave them some help in developing their skills and abilities.
And I want to jump right into this because there's a question I've been dying to ask you. And I've told you what that question is previously, but I'm going to get right into it. First of all, you worked for Legal Aid for 17 years.
As volunteer lawyer, as director of pro bono and volunteer lawyer, yeah.
Now you work for Bass, Berry & Sims, which has a national reputation. Excellent law firm. I don't know the best way to say that.
We are a very excellent law firm, and we do work nationally, having offices in Chicago, Memphis, Nashville, and Washington, D.C.
We're going to talk about that a little bit more about Bass, Berry, but here's the thing. So your attorneys who charge whatever the going rate is for downtown Nashville attorneys, hundreds of dollars an hour. They volunteer their time to represent clients who otherwise would not qualify and be able to pay Bass, Berry attorneys. Why? Why is Bass, Berry Sims donating time to represent clients for free?
The firm has, since it began 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, been committed to public service and to social justice. We understand that as attorneys, we have a unique license, experience, and expertise that we're really required to use to address inequalities, legal inequalities, social inequalities, economic inequalities. And we know that by addressing those, we strengthen the justice system and our communities. Bass, Berry & Sims knows that encouraging pro bono work, it's good for pro bono clients, it's good for attorneys, and it's good for the firm. Doing pro bono provides lawyers with professional development that enhances their attorney skills. It gives the lawyers opportunities to work directly with our corporate clients on pro bono matters, and it gives attorneys the possibility of a different perspective on legal work. And of course, the unquantifiable satisfaction of having made a real difference. So the firm's commitment to pro bono and our recognition in the community for our work is all important as a part of the firm's identity and to distinguish itself from other firms.
So if I'm an attorney at Bass, Berry, I might be doing, just an associate, let's say, just an associate. I might be doing something involving medical compliance, healthcare compliance issues.
Correct.
But I might get a volunteer client who is a landlord-tenant issue, or it could be a family law issue.
Well, I think we should put family law a little bit separate, and we might talk about that later, why that's a kind of difficult fit for lawyers who are business focused. But exactly. So if you're an attorney who's doing healthcare work, that healthcare work is all transactional. A couple kinds of pro bono work are probably going to be interesting to you, depending on your personality and what you want out of your practice. So one would be to do transactional work that mirrors what you do in your day-to-day practice. And another would be to represent an individual client in a matter that used some skills that you had, used your skill set, but was different, allowed you to do some different kinds of things, working directly with a client, doing client management, and using your skills for that individual client. So, for example, we do work representing individuals on SSI, SSD case, securing federal benefit for disabled individuals. We do those cases in Nashville with Legal Aid Society, and we do them through the DC Bar Pro Bono Center in our Washington Washington, D.C. office. Those cases have all been staffed by healthcare attorneys. They have the opportunity to work with a client directly and get that satisfaction of having made a real difference in an individual's life, but also are able to use the skills they have from their everyday practice to marshal facts, create an argument, and present that argument on behalf of a client to an administrative law judge.
It gives them practice, for lack of a better word, that they may not get otherwise. I was kind of thinking with my landlord-tenant example that it might be a situation where you get more courtroom experience. You may not get that ordinarily in the normal practice at Bass-Berry. You may not be the person who goes into the courtroom or even is the first chair or whatever.
One of the things we like to develop is work for our transactional lawyers. People traditionally think about pro bono as family law, landlord-tenant, general sessions work for an individual that involves going to court. But there's equal amounts of work for transactional lawyers, and we work very hard at the firm to create opportunities for transactional lawyers, both to do pro bono work that, again, mirrors the work they do every day. So doing real estate transactions, employment work, advising on intellectual property questions for nonprofits and organizations. And by undertaking that legal work, we free up them to focus on their mission. But we also have lawyers who are in transactional areas of practice who want to go to court. For those lawyers, we try to provide opportunities, often in uncontested matters, adoptions, conservatorship, SSI cases, and even that allow them to get that experience of going to court without feeling like they're having to invest a whole, more time in training and understanding, and that's something we need to cut because that makes no sense.
Experience teaches. So in this case, they're getting that experience. It's teaching them how to be a better attorney, how to be more well-rounded, perhaps.
Exactly. And I think that when I use the term professional development, I mean, that's exactly what that means. It's the ability to get additional experiences or to hone the experiences that you have acquired to become a better lawyer.
Yeah, you mentioned client management a minute ago. It's something you wouldn't ordinarily get that experience in law school. Now, so you're hitting the books. Even if you do clinics, I had to do 2 or 3 clinics when I was in law school, plus the internships, externships. Client management, I've gotten a lot more client management because that's all I do every day as an attorney. So it's a huge skill, but it's probably not learned till after law school.
Exactly. And client management for a client in an adoption case is the same in many ways as client management of a corporate client. You have to be able to convey the facts, the law, and manage their expectations.
That was the word I was going to use, expectations, because I know you've done family law a lot in your prior history of litigation.
Yes.
So we both know, and I've done a whole bunch. Client management is huge. As a matter of fact, I've been to trainings where they say client management is, 70 or 80% of the battle, perhaps, in a family law situations. So I definitely get it from my end, at least. You mentioned what the firm gets out of this, gets better lawyers, more well-rounded lawyers.
Correct.
I mean, not that it's a situation where what's in it for me, but still there's a residual benefit, perhaps.
For the firm?
Yes.
For the lawyers? Yes. I mean, there are residual benefits for the firm, and that is from getting better lawyers. It's from creating a presence in the community. It's getting recognition for the quality of our pro bono work that can distinguish us from other firms when clients are looking for a lawyer.
So how many hours donated, I don't know, in the last year or so, 2 years, do you know?
Yeah, I mean, the number of hours varies from year to year. We're averaging about 15,000 hours a year.
A year? And that's across all the offices?
All our offices right now, right.
So how many attorneys are part of the program?
Well, I mean, the 75 to 80% of our associates do some pro bono work every year, and about 50% of all our members do some pro bono work every year.
And how many associates? Maybe, do you know firm-wide? No? Too many?
I don't know the breakdown off the top of my head between associate counsel and members in terms of numbers. There's 400 attorneys attorneys, more than 400 across all of our offices.
Is it difficult to get attorneys on board?
When I went to legal aid to run the Nashville pro bono program, I'd never done that kind of work before. And so I did a lot of reading about how to manage a pro bono program. And one of the things that I read was there's nothing attorneys won't do if you define the need and create the opportunity to meet it. I found that to be true at legal aid, and it's equally true at Bass, Berry & Sims. If it's a problem to get an attorney on board, it's probably my failure to have adequately identified the need.
It's kind of mission-oriented.
It is very,
You sort of focus on the mission.
The lawyer understands there is a real need for this, that their legal work will have an impact. Lawyers will get on board and take that opportunity.
Do you have some super troopers among the Bass, Berry ranks?
Well, of course, there are always some attorneys who have more interest in pro bono or more capacity for pro bono, but the number of hours that any attorney does is generally related to the type of pro bono work that they're doing. So an adoption case may take 15 to 40 hours over 6 or 9 months, while someone working on an exoneration case with Tennessee Innocence Project will be involved with that matter for years and spend thousands of hours. I consider all of that work to be super pro bono work.
I'm going to ask you this next question, but I'm going to preface it, okay?
Sure.
So I have a sister, Mary Ann, who's an attorney in Louisiana, and I asked her years ago, it might have been, I don't know, while I was in law school. I said, Mary Ann, do you ever do any volunteerism? Do you ever do any pro bono hours? And she's in Louisiana, and she said, it's not required in my state. So this next question is, do you have attorneys at Bass Berry who say, hey, this ain't my, I'm already up to my limit. I'm up to my whatever. I don't have the capacity for this or whatever. They just say, oh, hell no.
Oh, they don't say hell no to me. Lawyers do have to consider their capacity in accepting pro bono work. And we know that the amount of pro bono work a lawyer can do at different times in their professional life and different times in their personal life can vary. A lawyer may have more or less time based on the number of hours that they're working on client matters, and then in a few months have time to work on a pro bono matter. So capacity is important.
I imagine if during the interview process, the orientation process, whatever, for your newer attorneys, there is some sort of dialogue about this is sort of an expectation here at this firm.
Right, we do. David Escobar is our pro bono member, and David and I participate in the orientation of every lawyer who comes on board at Bass, Berry & Sims to talk about the pro bono program, how it works, and to talk with the lawyers about what their interests are. It's important to me to know what communities, what issues, what organizations they might have an interest in working with, so that we can be sure to look for connections that speak to them when they want to do pro bono.
So how does it work? Can you break it down?
Well, the firm has a pro bono committee that's made up of lawyers across all of our offices and practice groups. They provide general overview strategies and support for the program. There's a pro bono member, David Escobar. David spends half of his time doing pro bono, both working on the administrative side and doing his own pro bono work. And then I'm the rest of that team, and my job is to maintain relationships with organizations and to connect the work that we have coming in with lawyers, to build support for lawyers when they take cases, and to support projects that we have that are ongoing projects.
If legal aid contacts you, or some sort of way you're notified by legal aid that there's a need, right. There's a client. So what happens next?
When we get a request for pro bono representation from a partner, whether it's Legal Aid Society or it's Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors or it's the Kind in D.C., I take that request, do some preliminary review of it, and then reach out to attorneys that I know have an interest in that type of work to let them know that this is an available pro bono matter. Often we'll put together a team of 2 or 3 lawyers to work on a matter together, and I'll work to help assemble that team and provide the support that they need to do that.
It might be an attorney in Nashville. It might be one in Knoxville. It might be one in Memphis or D.C. or
Correct.
Chicago.
Yeah. So, and our attorneys do work across offices. So we have, on the SSI case I was talking about in D.C., we had a lawyer in Nashville working with 2 lawyers in D.C. on that matter. So we were working across offices. We have a lawyer in Memphis right now, a corporate lawyer who's working with one of our clients to do some governance and on a nonprofit that's cited in Nashville. So, we look at the lawyers across our offices and want to match them with a pro bono work that's meaningful to them.
And how do you know what's meaningful to the attorney?
So because we do talk with the attorneys specifically about what their interests are. Again, the communities, the organizations, the issues, the kind of work they want to do. Is it a transactional lawyer who wants to just stay in that lane? Is it a litigator who wants to do class action work? Is it someone who wants to do client-facing work? And then with that information, we work to match those requests for help with the lawyers. And, we do also provide training and develop resources for lawyers when we have projects coming in. So, for example, we've been doing some work on conservatorships with Legal Aid Society, and the need for that had sort of veered off from legal aid side. And so now it's built back up and they need to get more lawyers involved. So we're going to have a CLE for our lawyers, both in Nashville and virtually, so that we can train people back up on the conservatorship cases so they're comfortable with those cases, and we'll be able to start taking those when we get that stream coming from Legal Aid Society.
So not to get too deep into the weeds, you have some sort of cheat sheet or list or something where, I'm going to throw out not a real name, but Tom Smith in Knoxville. That attorney has an interest in certain sort of, maybe taking what we call an adventure case, something beyond what that person would normally do. So you have some sort of way of knowing, notes or whatever, that attorney will likely take a case or at least be interested in the offer.
Yes. And I show my age when I say I refer to that as my Rolodex.
Is there any, and I'm going to use Dr. Kenya Waller, she's an executive director. She talks about being voluntold. Are there any attorneys who are voluntold at Bass Berry to perhaps take a case?
We don't have a requirement that people do pro bono, and nobody's required to do any specific case.
Do you have any idea how Bass Berry's volunteerism is viewed outside the firm?
Dean, one of the most gratifying things for me has been seeing how the firm is perceived as a pro bono leader. That is illustrated in part by the requests we receive from our partner organizations locally and nationally. For example, our collaboration with the DC Bar Pro Bono Center was recognized in a 2-page article in the Washington Lawyer magazine that featured our successful representation of a client obtaining a SSDI benefit. The firm's been recognized by the ABA's business section with a National Service Award for our commitment to pro bono legal work. And just this year, one of our lawyers, Garrett Carter Mason, was recognized by the Tennessee Bar Association as the Pro Bono Attorney of the Year for 2026. And that was one of 7 attorneys from the firm that have been recognized by the TBA with that award.
And you got an award in 2024, the Janice Holder Award.
I did get the Janice Holder Award. I was very privileged to receive that award from the Tennessee Alliance from Legal Services. I think recognized more than my individual work, the work of the hundreds and hundreds of lawyers that I've worked with since 2003 when I joined Legal Aid and through my time at Bass Berry.
I was in the audience when you received that award. It was at the annual EJU, Equal Justice Union. And I will tell you, hopefully without sounding too cheesy, that we were all very proud of you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Again, it's really, to me, represents the work of lawyers that I've had the privilege of engaging with over the last many years. Let's
talk about you a little bit, because you, as we mentioned at the top of this, that you used to run the volunteer lawyer program at Legal Aid, where, at the firm where I worked, the nonprofit. How did that come to be? How did you get to be running the VLP?
I had actually worked at Legal Aid Society earlier for about 3 years as managing attorney of family law. For some personal reasons, I'd moved out of town and had to leave that job, which was kind of heartbreaking because it was really my ideal job, and came back to Nashville, worked at Dodson Parker and Bem, now Dodson Parker, Bem and Caparella, for 12 to 13 years. During that time, I had done pro bono work, most of it in family law, and been very active doing pro bono work. I've always felt that pro bono work was an integral part of my life as a lawyer, and it was an extremely important part of my practice. There was the Legal Aid Society's pro bono program at the time was called the Nashville Pro Bono Program. They had not had an attorney director, and the Bar Association and Legal Aid made some decisions about changes, and one of the outcomes of their discussions was to have an attorney director. The director of Legal Aid Society at the time, Ashley Wiltshire, said to me, "So now that we've negotiated this, Lucinda, are you going to come on board as director?" And I said, "No." I changed my mind for a lot of reasons and really came to it as kind of a calling to join Legal Aid, realizing that I could do more good leveraging my time engaging lawyers in pro bono work than I could ever do just doing pro bono work on my own. Whereas over that next 17 years, I might have been able to help 30 or 45 people. We probably reached about 30,000 people over those 17 years.
Jordan Stringer was in this studio. He was sitting in that chair where you're sitting right now. He is now in the position you used to be in, the volunteer lawyer program. He leads it. And just as a quick refresher for this episode, what is VLP? What is it?
As I referred to the Nashville Pro Bono Program, which was operating for many years in Nashville. Legal Aid Society realized we needed to have a firm-wide pro bono program. And of course, the Legal Aid Society covers 48 counties in Middle and East Tennessee. The program was changed to volunteer lawyer program so that the pro bono work would focus across all 48 counties. And so the volunteer lawyer program is designed to encourage lawyers to do pro bono work across those 48 counties and to work with the local offices to identify the need in each area.
And one of the big things that you did, and Jordan does, is clinics. That's a huge part of the volunteer lawyer program. Legal Aid runs, I don't know how many clinics every month, all over the service area. In my interaction with you, my first introduction to you, as I said earlier, was through a clinic. We sort of had to hit the ground running. We'd show up at the clinic on a Saturday morning, and there'd be food there, first of all. And it was very collegial, very collaborative. You got to interact with older, more experienced attorneys, perhaps. To me, as a sort of a puppy attorney, a newer attorney, I was very grateful because, for one thing, you guys were nice to me. And you sort of talked about this earlier, I got exposed to a lot of areas of law that maybe I didn't think about or didn't want to necessarily pursue or whatever, but at least I got exposed to them.
And clinics are really important for meeting the needs of clients as well. I mean, what we know is that about 80% of the problems that people bring to a clinic setting can be resolved with advice and counsel in that setting. So it's a real way to have impact on people's lives. At Bass Berry, we participate with our legal service organization partners, Legal Aid of East Tennessee, Memphis Area Legal Services, West Tennessee Legal Services, and as well as Legal Aid Society of Middle Tennessee and the Cumberlands in supporting the clinics that they operate. We also support some of our partners in a staffing clinic. For example, in Memphis, we have for 17 years worked with AutoZone to host a legal clinic providing wills and powers of attorney for elderly citizens in the Orange Mound Senior Center in a low-income part of Shelby County. In Nashville, we have a clinic with Conexión Americas once a week, moving to twice a month, where we prepare powers of attorney for a minor child for families who are facing detention or deportation. In Nashville, we've also joined with Legal Aid Society in an initiative in the Napier-Sudicum neighborhood, where legal aid has committed to proactively provide representation for clients in that neighborhood, while we at Bassberry have agreed to staff a monthly legal clinic at the Pruitt Library in the Napier-Sudicum neighborhood. That collaboration with legal aid grew out of our recognition at Bassberry and Sims that we were working with a lot of organizations in the Napier-Sudicum community, Joy Kitchen, Harvest Hands, Tennessee Justice Center, as well as and the library itself. And all those organizations were providing tremendous support for that community, but there was a real lack of legal services for the individuals. So creating this Napier-Sudicum collaborative with Legal Aid Society was a way to meet those additional needs in the Napier-Sudicum neighborhood.
I don't want to flatter you too much, but I'm pretty sure you were the one, among others perhaps, but you taught me how to deal with people at clinic who, and I'm just going to say it this way, who were kooks or who were off the charts crazy. In other words, they came to our legal clinic and they did have an issue that was not a legal issue. For example, as you know, because you did this for a long time, someone might come to a legal clinic and say, hey, there's a van outside monitoring my house with cameras and all this other stuff. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I had someone exactly say that to me at one of the Nashville clinics. But you helped me you talk about client management, you have to gracefully find a way to get out of that situation so you can go help someone else at the clinic, because you cannot help this person because they don't have a problem that's a legal problem you can help with.
Right. I usually describe that as saying every problem does not have a good legal solution.
I'm going to say that's what you taught me back in the day. So I'm grateful to you for that.
And it also goes back to that client management issue that you and I have talked about earlier.
There's a lot of different ways that as an attorney, you have to sort of find the poise. And I'm not always saying I'm great at it, by the way, but you have to find the poise to sort of handle the situation, get out of it, hopefully in a quick way. The way you handle yourself in those situations rubbed off on me.
Thank you.
When you were at VLP, what were some of the things that you might have done to help encourage the private bar to engage in the way that you're now on the other side, engaging back with legal aid?
When I was doing pro bono work at Legal Aid Society, it was clear that the most important thing was relationships with lawyers. So building relationships with individual lawyers, but also being able to corral the resources that existed within larger firms. We tried to do that in several ways. One was to create a project that became known as the Pillar Firm Project, where large firms would agree to take a specific kind of case. As I see now sitting at Bassberry, we need to have CLEs and keep lawyers trained to handle a stream of cases. The Pillar Firm model at Legal Aid train up lawyers in a large firm to do a specific kind of case. At Bassberry, at the time I was at Legal Aid, Bassberry lawyers did landlord-tenant cases, and they did adoptions. Every landlord-tenant case or adoption that came across our desk in Davidson County went first to Bassberry and Sims. We worked as well to try to connect law firms in Nashville and had more resources in Nashville with some of the legal aid offices outside of Nashville. And Gallatin was one of those examples because law firm then Bone McAllister had a satellite office, pretty good sized satellite office in Gallatin. That office would take referrals from our Gallatin office for pro bono cases, and those clients would be represented by attorneys in the Gallatin office, but also with some of the Nashville lawyers' support as well. We developed clinics that met some specific needs. So, for example, and again, it's part of, there's nothing lawyers won't do if you identify the need and provide the opportunity to do it. I think one of the things we did at VLP was to identify needs. Needs in a rural county are huge. There's often not lawyers there to address them. So we had developed virtual clinics in Fairview, for example. We had realized there was very few resources for immigrants and refugees, so we worked with Metro Schools to have a clinic once a month specifically geared toward immigrants and refugees, with Metro providing interpreters at that clinic as well. And then obviously we also had general clinics that provided access to lawyers for people across the county and our service area.
When I was a volunteer at the clinics in the downtown Nashville office years ago. We would get a healthy amount of people down there. I don't know the numbers exactly, but I just know the lobby was filled with people. These other clinics you're talking about, were you satisfied with the numbers that turned out?
Yeah, we generally were identifying needs so that we had significant numbers of clients attending. The Saturday clinic is the one I think you attended most, and we would have 40 to 50 clients at each one of those clinics. So again, the clinics we had with Metro Public Schools, we would have 20 to 30 clients at each one of those clinics. It was really an important part of the work to be sure that information got to the community of people who needed help so that the clinics would have an impact.
Lucinda, those Saturday morning clinics, I used to feel guilty when I couldn't go. But I had a son, at some point, and my participation tapered off, but I still remember feeling a little bit guilty that you needed people and I couldn't come down there.
As I said earlier, people's capacity for pro bono fluctuates over the course of life and over the course of a career. And so no lawyer should ever feel guilty that they couldn't give time at a specific place or for a specific matter.
I think that goes to the camaraderie or the esprit de corps that was sort of built because you had maybe some retirees or something showing up, some people who were all from all different bankruptcy, whatever, all different walks of life. And so that Saturday morning clinic with the food there and everything, and you guys were nice to me when I walked in the door. So again, I think it's part of that was my feeling of guilt.
Well, I think the collegiality is an important part of pro bono work, certainly for lawyers who are responding to needs from an organization like Legal Aid Society, but also within Bass, Berry & Sims. It's a way for lawyers within the firm to work together with lawyers they may not have work with otherwise. So they're working across practice groups and associates getting to work with member that they may not be able to work with otherwise, but they get to do this work with a pro bono team. And that collegiality is important, I think, for a firm like Bass as well as it is for Legal Aid Society.
I'd like to thank Lucinda Smith for coming to the studio to talk about volunteerism. We will continue our discussion in the next episode, including some success stories and the impact that Bass Bear has made in some of its pro bono cases. That's next time on Talking Legal Aid. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking Legal Aid. I'm your host, Dean Hinton. Legal Aid of Middle Tennessee's website is las.org, and the podcast website is legalaidinaction.buzzsprout.com. Don't give up hope.